rods and cones. So that is the nervous layer which is made by the rods and cone. So rod shape is the gray matter of the retina, and other cells, they are the cone-like. So that's why they are called the rods and cones. And the neurons, they start from them, the nerve fibers. And all these nerve fibers, they all collect to form the what is called the second cranial nerve, that is the optic nerve, which leaves the eyeball 3 to 4 mm medial to the center of the retina, and it contains about 10,000 of the axons in one optic nerve. So this is the what is the structure of the 3 layers of the eyeball we were doing, with sclerocorneal junction, with the layer of the choroid, which is having the iris, the ciliary body, the incomplete vascular membrane, as well as it has the muscles also. So ciliary muscles are there inside the ciliaris muscle, the ciliary body, to which a biconvex lens of the eye is suspended by the suspensory ligaments, which are indirectly connected to the ciliary body. And the innermost layer is the nervous layer, that is called the retina, on which the image is formed, and rods and cones are present. So rods and cones are present here. These are the rods and cones, and the axons of these rods and cones from the ganglionic layer of the retina, they go into they form the second cranial nerve from all of them. And the lowermost layer of the retina, which is touching the choroid, is the pigmented layer. And this pigmented layer also continued on the inner side of the choroid and inner side of the iris also. So this is the pigmented layer. It contains the pigment. So pigmented layer is also continued on to the inner side of the iris and inner side of the ciliary body also. So the color of our eye, some people are having blue eye, green or black or brown. So the color of the iris depend upon the color of the pigment layer on the posterior surface of the iris. So this is how we exemplify it. And the smooth muscles of the iris and smooth muscles present inside the iris, that is the circular muscles, that is the sphincter pupillae supplied by the parasympathetic fibers, and radial muscles, which is supplied by the sympathetic and causing the dilatation. So they have the smooth muscles in the ciliaris muscle is also present in the ciliary body, which changes the thickness of the lens. So both are supplied, both require the sympathetic as well as the parasympathetic fibers. And these sympathetic and parasympathetic fibers come from a ganglion which is called ciliary ganglion, you know. Ciliary ganglion. So the parasympathetic fibers comes, they relay in the ciliary ganglion. The postganglionic fibers of parasympathetic, they as short ciliary nerves, they pierce the sclera They go into the choroid and they supply the ciliaris and the circular muscles in the iris. So this is the parasympathetic fibers. The other fibers which pass through the ciliary ganglion without relay, they are sympathetic. They are sympathetic fibers. And they also go via the short ciliary nerves. And they supply the radial muscles of this and ciliaris muscle also. So they are the short ciliary nerves. They are small, so they are called short ciliary nerve. The sympathetic fibers, they come through the plexus around the sympathetic plexus around the ophthalmic artery. So they carry the sympathetic fibers. So ophthalmic artery supplies the all structures in the eyeball. So this is sympathetic plexus which give the sympathetic supply to the smooth muscles. So this is how the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves reach. Beside this, the eye is also having the two eyelids, upper eyelid and the lower eyelid. The upper eyelid has got inside it a tarsal plate, and it is attached to the inserted on the a muscle, and this muscle is called the LPS, levator palpebrae superioris. So contraction of this muscle lead to the raising of the upper eyelid. So when we close the eye, see, only upper eyelid is moving. When we open the eye, only upper lid is moving. Lower eyelid remains stationary. So there is only muscle is present in the upper eyelid. There is no muscle in the lower eyelid. No doubt it has also the tarsal plate is also there, which is made up of cartilage. But there is no any muscle here. So this is the upper and the lower eyelid. The inside of the eyelid is covered by a thin sheet which is called conjunctiva, which is also covering the and protecting the anterior surface of the cornea of the eye. So this layer is the conjunctiva. So upper and both lids they are covering. So it is protective in function. Now as we know, the cornea is very sensitive. So whenever any insect or any foreign body touches the cornea, suddenly our eye closes, because the cornea, from the cornea a nerve starts, and this nerve runs in the sclera and comes out of the sclera carrying the sensation of the pain, temperature, touch and pressure. So this nerve which is coming from cornea, sensitive layer, the nerve carrying the sensation is called long ciliary nerve. Long ciliary nerve. They were the short ciliary nerve, they are autonomic. This is long ciliary nerve, it ultimately branch of the ophthalmic nerve. Ophthalmic nerve. So this is how we do the structure of the eyeball as a whole. Now next part we have to do, after doing the thorough knowledge about the what is called the eyelid or eyeball and all the layers, now we able to understand the part that is the optic pathways. So as we have already told you, so eyes lies in the bony orbit whose medial wall is straight, but the lateral wall is oblique in the skull, and every eye ball is present in the bony orbit, right and left eye. And from the posterior surface of the eyeball there arises a tortuous optic nerve which runs obliquely and here lies the nose. So this is the nasal side, this is the temporal side. So the field of vision a eye can see from an object it falls in the retina of the eye. So retina of the eye is divided into two parts. Nasal half is medial and temporal half of the retina is lateral. And in the center where the image is formed, is the central part of the vision. It is called the macula. So central part of the field of vision, and this is the nasal and this is the temporal. So this is the binocular vision in the human. So this is the field of the vision from where the image is formed on the lamina, on the retina. Then after image is transferred to the optic nerve, which now passes through the optic canal, which is present in the near the apex of the bony orbit. So after passing out from the orbit, each optic nerve runs straightway in the middle cranial fossa of the skull cranial cavity, and right and left, both the nerves they meet, they cross in the midline, they fuse together against a sulcus chiasmaticus which is present on the body of the sphenoid bone, just in front of the pituitary fossa. This is pituitary fossa. And when the right and left optic nerves they meet, they form, this is the optic nerve and this is the optic chiasma. So here the fibers they cross. Only the medial or the nasal fibers they cross. So fibers coming from the nasal part, they come here and they cross in the midline in the optic chiasma. After crossing, they further pass anterior to the pituitary fossa and the pituitary gland. On the opposite side, again form a bundle. This is called the optic tract. This is the optic tract. After optic chiasma, optic tract. Optic nerve is going to optic chiasma, then optic nerve tract is formed. Now the optic tract contains two types of the fibers. The nasal fibers, they are crossed, they remain medially, while the temporal vision, the temporal fibers, they are lateral in position. They do not cross, they remain lateral in position. So this is the temporal and nasal fibers. Now this optic tract so formed goes to the posterior surface of the thalamus, that is called the pulvinar. And in the pulvinar there is a button-like structure which is lateral in position, and this is called lateral geniculate body. Lateral geniculate body. It is part of metathalamus, and this lateral geniculate body, which is part of the metathalamus, has got 6 layers of the gray matter, and they are numbered as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. The nasal fibers, they relay as well as temporal fibers, they also relay in the 6 layers of the gray matter of the lateral geniculate body. The temporal fibers, they terminate in the number 3, 5 and 3, 4 and 6, while the nasal fibers, they terminate into 1, 2 and 5 in position. So this is how they terminate here. After termination into the lateral geniculate body of the thalamus, these fibers, they start their further journey. And now they go to the internal capsule. A little bit they go below the lentiform nucleus, then they go behind the lentiform nucleus, and these fibers form the retrolentiform part of the internal capsule. Retrolentiform part of the internal capsule. After that, these fibers, they run further back. Now they are called optic radiations. So optic radiations, they are nothing but they are the retrolentiform part of the internal capsule, and they run towards the visual cortex, that is the occipital lobe of the conscious level of the brain, that is the cerebrum. So occipital lobe with the area Broadman's number 17, 18 and 19. So this is how the optic radiations they are now reaching. The visual cortex area 17, 18 and 19. Now the nasal fibers they are reaching the macula part, and the macula part they are lying in the occipital pole. So occipital pole contains macular fibers or macular vision, and this is area 17. While the temporal fibers of the retina they carry the association visual impulses which are concerned with the perception and color and quality of the object, and they terminate into 18 and 19 area. They are the association fibers. And the association fibers they are present on the upper and lower part of the calcarine sulcus, on the medial part of the medial surface of the occipital lobe. At the same time, the fibers from the lateral geniculate body they also go to the both nasal as well as the temporal fibers. They also go another pathway to the frontal eye field of the frontal lobe. Frontal eye field area. Broadman's number 6. So as we know, the frontal eye field area, we have done the cerebrum. So it lies in the frontal lobe, just in front of the precentral gyrus here. This area is responsible for the conjugate movement of the eyeball. So these fibers they also go to the frontal lobe also. Another fibers from this area they also go to the midbrain in the superior colliculus, the tectum part of the midbrain. Tectum part of the midbrain. Around the cerebral aqueduct, there is a para-aqueductal gray matter. This is the superior colliculus, which is made up of gray matter. So these fibers from the lateral geniculate body, they enter into the superior colliculus and relay there. And another fibers, they also go and relay into the pretectal nucleus. Pretectal nucleus. So as we know, the superior colliculus, the function of the superior colliculus is S for sight, remember, superior colliculus of the midbrain, tectum part. What is the function? It is connected to the eye. So remember S for S. Superior colliculus is for the sight. Sight means vision of eye. And inferior colliculus function is ear. So S for sight, remember, S is superior colliculus, S is sight. It means it is concerned with the visual pathway or optic pathways. So this is all about the what is optic pathway, how the image reaches the conscious level of the brain, that is the occipital lobe, and occipital lobe lies here, and it is having the macular vision near the occipital pole. This is the area 17, then 18, and superiorly this is the area 19. So these are the functional areas of the 17, 18, 19. The teenage number, remember, is the visual cortex. While if we see the medially, the cerebrum, the occipital lobe, the occipital pole contains macular vision, and other, this is the association area, and this sulcus is here is the calcarine sulcus. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus. Both unite to form the collateral sulcus. So in the occipital lobe, on the medial surface of the cerebrum, this is area 17 above the calcarine sulcus and below it. Then come the 18 and then 19. Same is below. 17, 18 and 19. So these are the association area. 17 area with the occipital pole area. This is the macular vision is here. So this is how, whenever a question of the optic pathways comes or the optic visual pathway, you have to make this practice of this diagram, which shows the how you have to make the correct diagram of the lobes. Now comes the applied aspect. The applied aspect of the visual pathway. In the applied aspect, first comes the where the injury can occur and what is the problem comes with the patient. Whenever there is an injury at different level, that gives the problem to the patient. So there are the different level of the injuries in the clinical practice to the eye surgeons, depending upon which part of the optic tract or optic pathways they are involved or they are damaged. So first applied aspect, when the injury occur at the level of optic nerve, that is A level. So at the level A, if this injury occurs or optic nerve is cut due to any reason, then how the patient will present. So when the level of injury is A, here the optic nerve is cut, then both the nasal as well as the temporal vision of the eye, they are cut, and there will be no image formed. So patient becomes blind from one eye. and this is called anopia, blindness of one eye, loss of vision of both the field of the patient can't see from the temporal side and from the nasal side. So field of vision of the one eye is lost, and the condition is called, clinical condition is called anopia. This is level 1 if the injury occurs here. Number 2 injury is at the level of 2. This is A, this is B. Level injury of the B, when optic chiasma is cut. See, when the optic chiasma is cut, only the nasal vision is damaged. The temporal vision is okay because it is not crossing. So both the eyes having the loss of the nasal vision, but both the temporal vision, they are preserved of the both the eyes. So patient can see from the temporal side, but he cannot see in the straight way. And most common cause is the pituitary tumor. So when the pituitary tumor enlarges, when it enlarges in the anterior part, it will press the optic chiasma, and patient come with the complaint of loss of nasal vision of both the eyes, but temporal vision he can see. So this condition is called homonymous hemianopia. Hemi means one eye, one vision. So there is a nasal vision loss, but temporal vision is preserved or not damaged. So nasal vision is lost. Bilaterally, and preserve of the temporal vision bilaterally. When such a condition is called, this is called homonymous hemianopia. Hemi means half of the vision is lost of both the eyes. Third level of the injury of the optic pathway is C. That is when optic tract is cut. So when the optic tract is damaged, C, if it is of the left side, so there will be loss of the nasal vision of the right eye and loss of the temporal vision of the left eye. So again, half of the vision of the right and half of the left is lost. So this condition is again called same homonymous hemianopia, because in the left eye there is a loss of temporal vision loss, on the right eye loss of the nasal vision is lost. So such a condition is called again homonymous hemianopia of the right side and left side. Fourth level of the D level of the injury, this occurs at the level of lateral geniculate body. So if the lateral geniculate body is damaged, again same fibers are coming. So again the hemianopia, and this vision loss is the same as the number 3. Number 5th level is E, that is the damage of optic radiations. Optic radiations. So when the optic radiations they are damaged, which are going from the lateral geniculate body to the occipital lobe, the E level of the damage. So here what happens? Macular vision is also lost, along with the association area is also involved, because the optic radiations they relay into the whole of the gray matter of the optic or the visual cortex. So again there will be nasal loss of the opposite side and the temporal lobes of the same side of this. Again the condition is called homonymous hemianopia of both right and the left eye. So this is how we deal with the all concerned applied anatomy related to the eye vision or optic radiations. So whenever a question of the optic radiations come, so you should know how the optic nerve is formed from the retina and having two visions, nasal and the temporal vision, and from here they form the optic chiasma, only nasal fibers they cross, then they form the optic tract which go posterior lateral to the midbrain, then they go relay into the lateral geniculate body of the pulvinar, from where the fibers they go to the retrolentiform part of the internal capsule, then they form the optic radiations and they reach the occipital lobe with the Brodmann's number 17, 18 and 19. Another fibers they reach the frontal eye field area of the frontal lobe, plus they also go to the superior colliculus whose function is S for the sight. So they also go to the pretactile nucleus of the midbrain and also to the superior colliculus in a brachium, and from here the fibers they go to the other parts of the CNS, and we have also completed with the applied anatomy.